Welcome to the Joy Reid Show. I got my I'm Her shirt on. Hope you guys can see that and enjoy it. I have to bring it up over the mic so you guys can see it. It is good to see you all. It has been a very interesting weekend and last few days. We're going to get into a bunch of it because there's just a lot of crap going on. And what I have noticed and what I want to bring up to you guys this morning is it's not this morning, today, is the way that we're constantly having to navigate, right, between the things that are real and fascist and frightening and scary, and the things that are actually just stupid and performative, just like distractions that do not actually mean anything. And it literally can get very exhausting to try to figure out which is which is a distraction and which is real. So I want to start with the stupid and performative. Pete Hegseth, that's it, Pete Hegseth. No, seriously. I mean, he is stupid and performative, but seriously, last week, Pete Hegseth, our defense secretary, was in the Oval with Trump unveiling their latest renaming. And this comes on the heels of the renaming of the Gulf of Mexico to call it Gulf of America, which is meaningless because no one else in the world is required to call it the Gulf of America. It is still the Gulf of Mexico, which is why the AP is like, we're not doing that. But Hegseth's latest brain move is the Department of War. He's calling it the Department of War. I mean, for the president who was supposed to end all the stupid wars and who fantasizes in his head that he already ended 7 wars and needs a Nobel Peace Prize. But anyway, here is Pete Hegseth's announcement. Jason, fire away. Pete Hegseth.
It's going to fight to win, not to lose. We're going to go on offense, not just on defense. Maximum lethality, not tepid legality. Violent effect, not politically correct. We're going to raise up warriors, not just defenders. So this War Department, Mr. President, just like America, is back.
Maximum lethality, not maximum legality. Violent effect, not violent incorrect. Like what is it? Vanilla Ice? I've started calling him Vanilla Vice. Because I have no idea why he felt the need to do a rhyme. Or he's busting a rhyme in the Oval. Even Trump is looking at him like, why are you doing a rhyme? Maximum lethality, not maximum legality. What are you doing? For somebody that despises the idea of black people being in the military, you sure are trying to pretend that you're into hip hop, dude. That is embarrassing. I'm embarrassed. I'm officially embarrassed. We're calling him Vanilla Vice. That is his official new name from now on, Vanilla Vice. Embarrassing. Now, Hegseth is even more famous beyond that for firing anybody black, gay, or female in high military offices and deleting anybody black, gay, indigenous, or female from all of military history, while restoring Confederate names to U.S. military bases and Robert E. Lee's portrait wearing his Confederate grays to a privileged place at West Point, despite or maybe because there's also a black enslaved person in the picture. Now, here's Hegseth trying to justify renaming those bases. This is Senator Angus King questioning.
Mr. Secretary, I'm somewhat puzzled. I grew up in Virginia where Robert E. Lee was revered. I think when I was a kid, his birthday was a school holiday. But as I grew older and learned more about American history, I learned that he fit the classic definition of a traitor. He took up arms against his country. He broke his oath as a member of the United States Army, which he took upon entering his career at West Point. Why are you going through these incredible gymnastics, finding current soldiers or other soldiers to rename? And you slipped a minute ago. You said we're returning these bases to their original names. Robert E. Lee, leading general of the Confederacy, Pickett, the other names. Why are you doing this? I don't understand what.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Joy Reid Show. I got my I'm Her shirt on. Hope you guys can see that and enjoy it. I have to bring it up over the mic so you guys can see it. It is good to see you all. It has been a very interesting weekend and last few days. We're going to get into a bunch of it because there's just a lot of crap going on. And what I have noticed, and what I want to bring up to you guys this morning is it's not this morning, today, is the way that we're constantly having to navigate, right, between the things that are real and fascist and frightening and scary, and the things that are actually just stupid and performative, just like distractions that do not actually mean anything. And it literally can get very exhausting to try to figure out which is which is a distraction and which is real. So I want to start with the stupid and performative. Pete Hegseth, that's it, Pete Hegseth. No, seriously. I mean, he is stupid and performative, but seriously, last week, Pete Hegseth, our defense secretary, was in the Oval with Trump unveiling their latest renaming. And this comes on the heels of the renaming of the Gulf of Mexico to call it Gulf of America, which is meaningless because no one else in the world is required to call it the Gulf of America. It is still the Gulf of Mexico, which is why the AP is like, we're not doing that. But Hegseth's latest brain move is the Department of War. He's calling it the Department of War. I mean, for the president who was supposed to end all the stupid wars and who fantasizes in his head that he already ended 7 wars and needs a Nobel Peace Prize. But anyway, here is Pete Hegseth's announcement. Jason, fire away. Pete Hegseth.
It's going to fight to win, not to lose. We're going to go on offense, not just on defense. Maximum lethality, not tepid legality. Violent effect, not politically correct. We're going to raise up warriors, not just defenders. So this War Department, Mr. President, just like America, is back.
Maximum lethality, not maximum legality. Violent effect, not violent incorrect. Like what is it? Vanilla Ice? I've started calling him Vanilla Vice because I have no idea why he felt the need to do a rhyme. Or he's busting a rhyme in the Oval. Even Trump is looking at him like, "Why are you doing a rhyme? Maximum lethality, not maximum legality." It's like, what are you doing? For somebody that despises the idea of black people being in the military, you sure are trying to pretend that you're into hip hop, dude. That is embarrassing. I'm embarrassed. I'm officially embarrassed. We're calling him Vanilla Vice. That is his official new name from now on, Vanilla Vice. Embarrassing. Now, Hegseth is even more famous beyond that for firing anybody black, gay, or female in high military offices and deleting anybody black, gay, indigenous, or female from all of military history, while restoring Confederate names to U.S. military bases and Robert E. Lee's portrait wearing his Confederate grays to a privileged place at West Point, despite or maybe because there's also a black enslaved person in the picture. Now here's Hegseth trying to justify renaming those bases. This is Senator Angus King questioning him.
Mr. Secretary, I'm somewhat puzzled. I grew up in Virginia where Robert E. Lee was revered. I think when I was a kid, his birthday was a school holiday. But as I grew older and learned more about American history, I learned that he fit the classic definition of a traitor. He took up arms against his country. He broke his oath as a member of the United States Army, which he took upon entering his career at West Point. Why are you going through these incredible gymnastics, finding current soldiers or other soldiers to rename? And you slipped a minute ago. You said we're returning these bases to their original names. Robert E. Lee, leading general of the Confederacy, Pickett, the other names. Why are you doing this? I don't understand what the motivation is to rename bases for people who took up arms against their country on behalf of slavery. What possible motivation can there be for this? Who is telling you to do this? Who is urging you to do this?
Senator, the veterans and service members across the country who have deployed from Fort Bragg or Fort Benning or Fort Hood or Fort Pickett, there's a legacy, there's a connection to those bases and to those places, to what they trained for there, what they did for, and what they came home back to. That matters to them. Ask enough of them, as I do, all the time, before and later. And we recognize the service of those who were put into the replacement. No one's disputing that. I would never dispute that. What we're looking at is erasing history, erasing names, erasing base names that service members are tied to. Talk to people that serve at Bragg. Ask people that serve at Fort Bragg or Fort Benning if they like the fact that the names have been returned. And to a man and to a woman, they will tell you, thank God we're back to Fort Bragg, and thank God we're back. And thankfully, because so many men and women in this country have served, there's a Benning and a Bragg and a Pickett and a Hood has a Silver Star or a Medal of Honor that we could rename the base to because of the limits of what Congress allowed us to do. So this is something we've been proud to do, something that's important for the morale of the Army, and those communities appreciate that we've returned it back to what it was instead of trying to play this game of erasing names.
We're not erasing history, Mr. Secretary. We're recognizing history and recognizing that mistakes have been made in this country. The greatest of all was the Civil War, where people took up arms against their country on behalf of the institution of slavery. And to continue the practice of recognizing those people and honoring them by the naming of these bases is, I believe, an insult to the people of the United States.
Hear, hear, Senator Angus King. Hear, hear. And I promise you, no soldiers are running up to that, Vanilla Vice and saying, please, please, we need the Confederate names back. I promise you no one's doing that. That's something he wants to do, okay? He's doing it because he wants to and Trump wants to. And by the way, here's the thing. After the murder of George Floyd and America fired Donald Trump as president, Congress passed, and actually they passed it before they fired Donald Trump. Well, after he was fired, but before he was sworn in. This was in January of 2021. Congress passed, and then Joe Biden, once he was finally sworn in, signed a law making it literally illegal to name U.S. military bases after our sworn enemies, including the treasonous, slavery-loving demons of the Confederacy. So what is Vanilla Vice doing to get around that literal law? As you heard him indicate in that testimony, I'm going to read this Guardian story, just a little bit of it. Quote, since Donald Trump returned to office this year, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has ripped the new names off of a series of U.S. Army bases and brought back their old traitorous Confederate names. His actions have angered Democrats and even some Republicans in Congress, prompting a rare rebuke of the Trump administration by the Republican-controlled Congress last Tuesday. The GOP House of Representatives Armed Services Committee voted on July 15 to block Hegseth from renaming the bases after Confederates. 2 Republicans voted with the Democrats on the committee to pass the measure, which was an amendment to the Pentagon's budget bill. Quote, what this administration is doing, in particular, this Secretary of Defense is sticking his finger in the eye of Congress, said Republican from Nebraska, Don Bacon, who voted to stop Hegseth. Hegseth's move elicited bipartisan anger because it flouted the law. Congress passed legislation, as I said, in January 2021 to create a commission to choose new names for the bases that were named for Confederates and mandated that the recommendations be implemented by the Pentagon. That law was passed over a veto by Trump in the final days of his first term, and the name changes were later implemented by the Pentagon during the Biden administration. The law is still on the books, so in order to return the old Confederate names, Hegseth has openly played games with their namesakes, reports The Guardian. The secretary claims that he's renamed, and this is the part where it becomes performative. This is the performative piece that you guys have to understand. Okay. The secretary claims that he's renamed the bases after American soldiers from throughout U.S. history who were not Confederates. Note, not Confederates, but they all conveniently have the same last names as the original Confederate namesakes of the bases. For example, Fort Bragg is now supposedly named after Roland Bragg, who was an Army paratrooper in World War II. Fort Benning is not renamed after the Confederate Benning. It's now supposedly named for Fred Benning, Fred, a soldier who served in the Army in the First World War for like a year and a half. So they've renamed, they're performatively pretending to rename these bases after Confederates. So all you Confederate sympathizers, take note. The names aren't even their old treasonous forefathers. They're random other soldiers from various other wars who just happen to have the same last names. So not the original Benning, Fred Benning. It's his base now. And they've taken off the names of some very heroic people whose families are still alive and had to watch themselves get these names from the Biden administration and then have them taken away by Trump administration 2.0 so they could pretend to put the Confederate names back on, but they're really not doing that. It's fake, it's performative, but it still allows them to cosplay as the new Confederacy. So that's the performative stuff. And then there are the very real, really dangerous things that these people are doing, like deploying the U.S. military onto the streets of American cities in clear violation of the Posse Comitatus Act, which bars the military from operating on domestic soil. And to get around that, the regime declared an emergency, saying they needed to stop a transnational gang from Venezuela called Tren de Aragua. Except they used an 18th century law called the Alien Enemies Act and combined it with the George W. Bush-style endless war on terror BS. They use that rationale to say that anybody and everybody is Tren de Aragua. So they can arrest anybody they want, deport them to foreign gulags, hold them in indefinite detention, whatever they want. You're Tren de Aragua, I can do whatever I want to you. And as of this morning, the Supreme Court has once again ruled in the favor of King Donald, declaring that they can do that and use racial profiling and that that is okay. That they can now racially profile people in order to pretend that everyone is Tren de Aragua. Let me read a little bit of this Supreme Court story. Let me go into that real quick. It says here, in a decision that rubber stamps racial profiling by Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents in Los Angeles and could accelerate deportations across America, the Supreme Court on Monday ruled that federal agents do not only need reasonable suspicion to target someone for immigration detention, leaving the door open for any rationale immigration agents choose to use, unless including racial profiling. The ruling comes after the Trump administration asked the Supreme Court to block an order from a lower court that prohibited agents from using 4 racially loaded categories to justify arrests: apparent ethnicity, language spoken or accent, presence at a location where immigrants were believed to gather, or working in a particular kind of job. The order had snaked through the high court's emergency or shadow docket since October 7th. The decision overturns for now an order by U.S. District Judge Meme Ewusi Mensah, FIMPRONG, which had temporarily halted ICE agents in Los Angeles from making arrests or stops without reasonable suspicion. U.S. citizens and immigrants had been detained under the Trump administration's directive to the Department of Homeland Security, often by masked and sometimes armed men. FIMPRONG found those raids to be done illegally and specifically in violation of the Fourth Amendment. But Justice Brett Kavanaugh said, no, it's all fine. In a 6-3 decision, you will not be surprised, it's 6-3. Immigration officers under an Immigration and Nationality Act are allowed to interrogate any alien or person believed to be an alien as to his right to be or to remain in the United States, and that includes brief detention for questioning, as well as if there are reasonable suspicions that a crime has been committed. In this case, the crime would be being an illegal alien in the United States, Kavanaugh wrote. Whether an official has reasonable suspicion depends on the totality of the circumstances, he writes. Here, those circumstances include that there is an extremely high number of people and percentage of illegal immigrants in the Los Angeles area, that those immigrants tend to gather in certain locations or seek daily work, that those individuals often work in certain kinds of jobs, such as day labor, landscaping, agriculture, and construction, that they do not require paperwork and are therefore especially attractive to illegal immigrants. And that many of those illegally in the Los Angeles area come from Mexico or Central America, so do not speak much English. To be clear, apparent ethnicity alone cannot furnish reasonable suspicion under this court's case law regarding immigration stops. However, it can be a relevant factor when considered along with other factors. So basically, he has said that you can use language, where somebody is standing, their color, their accent, and the fact that they don't speak much English. You will not be surprised that it is the 3 liberal women who voted in dissent. And this is what Sonia Sotomayor wrote. She said, one Latino U.S. citizen feels like he needs to carry his passport for protection in case federal agents stop him again. Another Latino U.S. citizen similarly worries that as a visibly Latino man, he could be detained if he does not carry his passport, but decided against doing so because he believes that as an American, he should not have to live like that in his own country. So according to the Supreme Court of the United States, we now effectively have apartheid in America. People who are brown or who have an accent or who speak with an accent or who do not speak sufficient English have to now carry their papers everywhere they go, according to the United States Supreme Court. Otherwise, they can be racially profiled. That is what the United States Supreme Court has now ruled. Welcome to apartheid America. If you're brown or black, you're going to have to carry your papers everywhere you go. If you're white, you're fine. You can go anywhere you please. And that likely works for Trump, who called every black and brown person a natural-born criminal. Don't believe me? Here he is.
Criminals. These are hardcore criminals. You know, we took many people off the streets of Washington, D.C. They're hardcore. They're not going to be good. In 10 years, in 20 years, in 2 years, they're going to be criminals. They were born to be criminals, frankly. They were born to be criminals, and they're tough and mean, and they'll cut your throat, and they won't even think about it the next day. They won't even remember that they did it. And we're not going to have those people. Washington, D.C. is now a safe zone. It's a safe place.
This coming from a natural born criminal, a person who is an actual felon. What was it, 38 counts? Somebody who was civilly found liable for sexual abuse of E. Jean Carroll and has about 24 other accusers. The guy who was best friends with our most notorious pedophile sex trafficker who trafficked children, his bestie for decades, for a decade at least, according to the late Jeffrey Epstein, that guy calling other people natural born criminals. Or how about Eric Schmitt, United States Senator from Missouri? He took it even more blatantly racist during a speech in which he said, get this, America belongs to white people and white people alone. Here he is.
The Continental Army soldiers dying of frostbite at Valley Forge, the Pilgrims struggling to survive in the hard winter soil of Plymouth, the pioneers striking out from Missouri for the wild and dangerous frontier, the outnumbered Kentucky settlers repelling wave after wave of Indian war band attacks from beyond the stockade walls. All of them will be astonished to hear that they were only fighting for a proposition. They believed they were fighting for a nation, a homeland for themselves and their descendants. They fought, they bled, they struggled, they died for us. They built this country for us. America, in all its glory, is their gift to us, handed down across the generations. It belongs to us. It's our birthright. It's our heritage, our destiny. If America is everything and everyone, then it is nothing and no one at all. When they tear down our statues and monuments, mock our history, and insult our traditions, they're attacking our future as well as our past. By changing the stories we tell about ourselves, they believe they can build a new America with the new myths, a new people. But America doesn't belong to them. It belongs to us. It's our home. It's a heritage entrusted to us by our ancestors. It's a way of life that is ours and only ours. If we disappear, then America too will cease to exist.
All that's missing from that is you will not replace us. I mean, that speech would have been quite at home in 1980s South Africa. That speech would have been quite at home, I would believe, in 1930s Germany or in any of the fascist countries in this moment that are trying to kick out immigrants. Note that he also placed Native Americans, the people who had this country first, the people who were already here, he cast them as standing in the way of the white settlers' right to steal their land. They also are not a part of this America because the settlers wanted it, and according to him, it belongs to their descendants and only them. White Anglo-Saxon Protestants. It belongs to them and only them. Make it clear, Schmitt. At least you're being honest and being open. We know who you are. We got you. We hear you. I mean, it's wild. It's like the U.S. has morphed directly into a white Christian ethno-state. An ethno-state, by the way, similar to Israel, right-wing Israel, which has attempted to make itself a Jewish ethno-state where the government can designate anyone or anything to be Hamas and just start killing them, right? They can start bombing them. They can start starving them. No different from how the Trump regime can designate anyone as illegal or tren de agua and strip them of their rights, detain them, jail them, ship them overseas, or even outright kill them. Like, by the way, our military just did last week to 11 people on a random boat in the Caribbean in a probable act of war. Take a look at this video. It's silent, but you can see it. Donald Trump made a very dramatic announcement in the Oval Office. You can see this boat. It's going along. We don't know who's in it. We don't know where they're going. We don't know what they're doing. But the United States military obliterated this boat and killed the 11 people on it. You can see it happen right there. Wild, right? A war crime on tape. Now, of course, Peter Thiel's little friend, JD, bragged about it on Twitter, prompting a fellow Twitterzen, Brian Krasenstein, to remind the Yale Law School grad that killing 11 people in a boat with no legal justification is probably a war crime. To which Vance replied, I don't give a shit what you call it. I don't give a shit what you call it. At which point, Libertarian Republican Senator Rand Paul jumped in, saying, JD, I don't give a shit Vance says killing people he accuses of a crime is the highest and best use of the military. Did he ever read To Kill a Mockingbird? Did he ever wonder what might happen if the accused were immediately executed without trial or representation? What a despicable and thoughtless sentiment it is to glorify killing someone without a trial. I mean, when Rand Paul is a voice of reason, I mean, the U.S. literally had no justification or legal backup to just kill people, Israeli style, with no evidence even of who these people were or who the boat was or who owned it or whatever. And to make it even worse, the media is reporting on this likely war crime as if it's perfectly mundane. Now, not to pick on CBS, but also let's pick on CBS. Here is how CBS reported on this.
The president and Secretary of State Marco Rubio also announced today that the U.S. military conducted what they call a lethal strike in the southern Caribbean against a drug vessel which had departed from Venezuela and was being operated by what they called a designated narco-terrorist organization. They provided few other details. Meantime, just yesterday, Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, called Rubio a warlord and says Rubio seeks to stain Donald Trump's hands with blood. He says the president is being manipulated by Rubio. This as tensions continue to rise between the U.S. and Venezuela. Trump has already sent the National Guard into Washington, D.C. and has threatened to do the same here in New York. In the newsroom, Dick Brennan, CBS News.
They just kind of moved on, you know, and now we're going to talk about the other thing. I mean, by the way, Nicolas Maduro is also a horrendous human being and a dictator. But now this regime is acting just like a dictator as well. Maduro is a dictator. I would argue Bibi Netanyahu's pretty much an autocrat, and they're acting like him. Any hospital that Bibi and friends bomb, they're Hamas. The cameras are Hamas. The buildings and schools are Hamas. The toddlers, definitely Hamas. The food aid, Hamas. The hospitals and doctors and the reporters, Hamas, Hamas, Hamas. Kill them all, no repercussions. And now we're doing the same thing in the Caribbean Sea. They're like me too. Everyone's friend their agua. We kill who we want. Deport who we want. Put the military in American streets whenever we want. Go to war against Chicago. And the media is reporting on it. And the media that's reporting on it just better be nice, or Trump will get in your face and call you names or punish your company or not let you do mergers, or the FCC will come after you and Trump will sue you. Whatever he wants, he gets. Whatever Israel wants, they get. No negative coverage allowed. Please check out this Sky News report.
The president left the White House mid-morning for a day in New York at the tennis, but his post from 24 hours earlier was still echoing.
That's fake news. When you say that, darling, that's fake news.
Well, why would you the Department of Defense?
Listen, be quiet. Listen. You don't listen. You never listen. That's why you're second rate. We're not going to war. We're going to clean up our cities. We're going to clean them up so they don't kill 5 people every weekend. That's not war. That's common sense.
It was lunchtime on Saturday when the post dropped from the president's social media account. Intentionally provocative, a play on the wartime film Apocalypse Now, repurposed for an American city, and an expansion of his deportation policy. A nod too to the Department of War, because that is what his Defense Department has now been renamed. At the Pentagon late on Friday, workers chiseled away. Defense became war after an Oval Office executive order. Chicago was one of a number of American cities where the streets were full through the weekend. In the shadow of Trump Tower, they protested his presidency.
Chicago is not the narrative that people try and paint it as.
He wants everyone to be afraid. He loves to see that people are afraid.
And I just want to note a few things there. Yamiche Alcindor is the reporter, African-American reporter, Haitian-American reporter that Donald Trump was screaming at and insulting. And by the way that he has treated Yamiche over the years earns him this, and I say it, this is me saying it, not Yamiche, F you, Donald Trump. You don't speak to her that way. You have no respect, and no one respects you. So for you to speak to Yamiche Alcindor that way when she was actually correct, your White House is the one that put up the funny "we're going to war in Chicago" meme. Your White House is the one who renamed the Defense Department the Department of War. You all did that. She was asking a question about what you did. And she was absolutely correct. So they can joke about going to war with Chicago, right? But reporters can't ask about them going to war with Chicago. And by the way, have you noticed the whole rationale for the military deployments that started off as being about immigration and the so-called invasion of the southern border by the transnational gang that they use the Alien Enemies Act to justify, suddenly is now about just regular, ordinary crime? The whole immigration thing is gone. Now it's about crime, but still the same solution, the military. And by the way, I love Mayor Brandon Thompson's response, Chicago Mayor Brandon Thompson's response. Take a look at this. Oh, well, Salt trucks. Their solution is salt trucks. They're putting salt trucks on the streets in order to get in the way of the military trying to come to their city. The mayor of D.C. should take notes. Meanwhile, we continue to watch the media jump the shark. Trump attended the U.S. Open over the weekend, prompting the U.S. Tennis Association to issue an edict, check this out, telling broadcasters not to hurt Trump's little fifis by showing him getting booed, which is what always happens when he attends anything in New York City or any other normal city where everybody hates him. It is pretty chilling, right? But it's also designed to produce media that is state-approved and false. Their order said an internal email sent by the U.S. Tennis Association leadership to U.S. Open broadcasters obtained by Bounce has requested that broadcasters censor any possible protests or other reactions to President Trump's presence. They said, censor it, please don't show it. So Trump was booed lustily at the U.S. Open. They literally held most of the crowd, by the way, in endlessly long TSA lines, its security lines, so that he could wave to a mostly empty stadium and the boos could be reduced in scale. And this is not Trump's first rodeo waving to nobody. And people online often wonder why he does that. Why does he wave to nobody? Well, it's because the one thing Trump does know very well is TV and the media. And he knows exactly what they will do with footage like that. CNN reported it this way.
And that networks might try to be, falling in line or capitulating, as we've seen in some cases earlier this year. Bottom line, though, ABC, ESPN they have chosen to show that the president is there. You could hear a mix of cheers and boos. And I think what's going on here, whether you're a broadcaster or you're the Tennis Association, you want to keep the action on the court. You want to keep the focus on the athletes and not on who is in the stands.
Okay, and so he is there. Play is underway. Do we know who has accompanied the president?
Well, I think that's probably the more important part of the Trump attendance at the U.S. Open. He's been photographed there with the CEO of Rolex, and he's in the Rolex suite. In fact, the tennis tournament the trophy is put up in the suite, is right next to the president. So it is notable that the president accepted a corporate client's invitation, apparently. In this case, Rolex, the Swiss watchmaker, just a few weeks after the Trump administration imposed a 39% tariff on products from Switzerland. We don't know what the discussions are like in that suite, in that box, but you can imagine that the executives at Rolex have a lot to say to President Trump about the tariffs. So amid the sports celebration, amid the U.S. Open, I think it's worth asking if the president's having his ear bent by the executives at Rolex about the tariffs. He is also there with Attorney General Pam Bondi, a number of other Trump administration officials this afternoon, Fred.
Yeah, it's also worth asking, will he get a Rolex? Will he be gifted while he's in that box? Stranger things have happened. All right, Brian Stelter.
Right.
Oh my God. I like Frederica Wilson, and I like Frederica Wilson and Brian Stelter, but really? I mean, really? Only get a Rolex? This is called normalization, folks. Very Russian. But normalizing what we just saw there and writing off the fact that the U.S. Tennis Association said, do not show him getting booed. That is not normal, and it is not funny. And him, maybe getting a Rolex and sitting in the Rolex box, like the presidency is literally for sale and can be swapped for Rolexes. Please don't normalize that. And it just keeps coming. We are now seeing the fallout from Skydance taking ownership of CBS. Now, at this point, the only good thing about it and about this new company is South Park. And by the way, the latest episode in their latest gag in this season is the question of whether Trump is effing Satan, which of course has a double meaning because in the show, he's literally getting it on with Satan, but he also might be effing Satan. I kind of go back and forth between whether he is the devil or did he sell his soul to the devil and become an all-powerful billionaire? I don't know. Just kidding. But besides South Park, all that we are getting from CBS is the sellout. After Kristi Noem complained about, you guessed it, the editing of an interview that she did on CBS, CBS News has now agreed to stop editing its interviews at all. They've effectively put themselves under government control, per Mediaite. CBS is changing its Face the Nation interview policy after complaints from Department of Homeland Security Chief Kristi Noem. Noem accused CBS of shamefully editing her responses to a question about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the migrant man who was deported and jailed in El Salvador by the Trump administration, then finally brought back to the United States. The Trump administration initially admitted Garcia was deported as the result of an administrative error, but has continued to seek his deportation and accuse him of gang affiliations. In the release, DHS said more than 23% of Noem's interview ended up on the cutting room floor. They published a comparison of Noem's statement to the edited version. Initially, CBS defended its actions, that the interview was edited for time and met all of CBS's news standards. CBS News added that the entire interview is publicly available on YouTube, which is how they probably compared it. And the full transcript was posted early Sunday morning on cbsnews.com, which is, again, how they probably compared it. CBS edited out an unsubstantiated charge that Noem made against Garcia and his treatment of small children, something the government has never charged him with. But on Friday, the network said that it had a change of heart after listening to audience feedback over the past week and announced its new policy for greater transparency in our interviews. Face the Nation will now only broadcast live or live-to-tape interviews subject to national security or legal restrictions. CBS News said in a statement, this extra measure means the television audience will see the full unedited interview on CBS, and we will continue our practice of posting full transcripts and the unedited video online. CBS's parent company, Paramount, recently agreed to pay President Donald Trump $16 million after he complained about the editing of a Kamala Harris 60 Minutes interview that he claimed purposely made her look good. The settlement came as Trump administration considered approving the $8 billion sale of Paramount to Skydance. So what's next? They're going to allow Kristi Noem and other administration officials to lie on their air without editing or cutting it out. And what's next? Are they also going to send flowers after every interview with a member of the regime? Oh, but wait, there's more. More capitulation from the Tiffany Network. The network where Edward R. Murrow and Walter Cronkite and Dan Rather used to work is now going to be run basically by a Substacker named Barry Weiss. You heard me right. According to Dylan Byers of Puck News, David Ellison, son of billionaire Larry Ellison of Dell Computers, who runs Skydance, the company that now owns CBS, is going to purchase Ms. Weiss's Substack channel, The Free Press, for a whopping $100 to $200 million and put her in charge of CBS News. Or, to put it more bluntly, as The Nation did, vile grifters are taking over establishment media. Let me read from this article by Jack Murkinson. 20 years ago, as a student at Columbia, she led a racist smear campaign against Arab professors who had the audacity to criticize Israel. As a New York Times columnist, she constantly hawked right-wing bile while posing as a liberal who was just tired of all the extremism and censorship on the left, a tedious bait and switch that nonetheless made her media profile soar. And as founder and editor of the Free Press, she has pushed genocide denial, transphobia, and the freedom to make Nazi salutes. If we lived in a less terrible time and place, Weiss would be dismissed as a crank and a bigot and never heard from again. But we live in the waking nightmare that is the United States in 2025. So instead, Weiss is being rewarded with a prize that even she must think is kind of wild. That prize, CBS News. CBS News. The person handing this gift to Weiss is David Ellison, the billionaire Nepo baby who just merged CBS News' parent company, Paramount, with his company, Skydance Media. Ellison, Puck's Dylan Byers reported on Wednesday, is paying somewhere between $100 million and $200 million to buy the Free Press and install Weiss somewhere at the top of the network. And here are the grim details from Byers. As part of the deal, I'm told David plans to give Barry a role at CBS News that would, among other things, task his fellow millennial with guiding the editorial direction of the division. Barry's avowedly pro-Israel and anti-woke worldview, not to mention her broadly shit-kicking anti-establishment disposition, would inevitably inspire blowback from various corners of the newsroom and could dramatically change the editorial posture and reputation of one of the most storied and certainly self-important institutions in American journalism. For David, that's likely part of the point. And by the way, this is me still quoting Murkinson. Two things here. First, calling them David and Barry like they're your friends who hang out with you all the time is annoying. We get it, Dylan. You're in the know. Nobody cares. Second, the laughable line about Weiss's broadly shit-kicking anti-establishment disposition is fundamental to understanding why her particular brand of bullshit has been so successful. For credulous hacks like Byers, this is quoting him, not me, the fact that Weiss tosses around banalities about wokeness and free speech makes her an anti-establishment figure. But people who actually oppose the establishment don't get paid hundreds of millions of dollars by that same establishment. Instead, what Weiss peddles is pro-establishment bilge that flatters the need of our richest and most cosseted dimwits to pretend they're actually besieged outsiders. Boom. So to review, the Washington Post is now the shit-kicking right-wing free market plaything of Jeff Bezos, which is why all the journalists are quitting. The LA Times is now the shit-kicking pro-MAGA plaything of some South African billionaire, which is why the journalists are quitting. CBS News is the shit-kicking home of pro-Israel propaganda and some other various pro-Trump shit-kicking. There's no MSNBC because it's MS now. And the billionaires aren't just playing Trump games, they're giving Trump prizes. Here's a bunch of them glazing Trump in person in the Oval last week.
Bill, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you for incredible leadership, including getting this group together.
Thank you, Bill. That was very nice.
I want to thank you for including me this evening. It's incredible to be among everyone here, particularly you and the First Lady. I've always enjoyed having dinner and interacting.
AI is going to change everything. You hear all of us saying that. But the fact that you are our president and you recognize this right away and you've unleashed American innovation and creativity.
Echo the comments of Tim and others. Thank you so much for getting us all together, and thank you for being such a pro-business, pro-innovation president. It's a very refreshing change.
I think it's a real incredible inflection point right now in AI. The fact that your administration is supporting our companies instead of fighting with them.
We look forward to working together, and thanks for your leadership.
Great job you're doing. Incredible, really, job. Would anybody like to say anything?
Anything else?
A lot of geniuses on my right.
Well, thanks for hosting us. I mean, this is quite a group to get together, and I think all of the companies here are building, just making huge investments in the country in order to build out data centers and infrastructure to power the next wave of innovation. So it's we don't often get together as the CEOs of the different companies, but it's good to see everyone.
Yeah, and Zuck, can I be Byers-like and just call him Zuck? He got even more shit-kicking MAGA when his lord asked him to show him the money. Here he is.
How much are you spending, would you say, over the next few years?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I think it's probably going to be something like, I don't know, at least $600 billion through 28 in the U.S. Yeah.
It's a lot.
No, it's significant.
That's a lot. Thank you, Mark. It's great to have you.
Sorry, I wasn't ready to do for announcement.
He said I wasn't sure what number you wanted to go with.
Bob, how much money did you want me to say, Bob? How much money? Don't worry. Don't worry. We won't post you getting booed at the U.S. Open on Meta. We'll protect you, Bob. We love you, Bob. Lord have mercy. Jimmy Kimmel had the best send-up. Check it out.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, I want you to know sometimes when I watch you striding across the White House lawn so confidently, with so much masculinity, I'll admit it, I get sexually aroused. Thank you for breathing life back into my once slumbering penis.
That was very well said,
It's the accuracy. The accuracy. Now I will note that this table full of bootlickers was one ketamine fiend short this time. No, Elon, what happened? What gives? And joining me now is the great Kara Swisher of the eponymous Kara Swisher Show. It's a reversal. You had me on your show, and now you're on my show. See how we love it.
That's how we do it in the podcast business, my friend.
And we do whatever we freaking want.
Hello.
This is it. We love this new life. Well, first of all, welcome, Kara. It is great to have you over. And listen, one day we have to do this in person with cocktails.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Your number after this, and we're having dinner. Okay.
Perfect. All right. Done and dusted. I want to start by talking about this very, very weird moment of all of these CEOs around the table. Jimmy Kimmel did a great send-up of it, all praising Trump, Tim Cook of Apple, all of them doing. What, as somebody who has covered this tech world for a long time, what did you make of it?
Well, back in 2016, I actually broke a story of them all going to Trump Tower. Nobody had known they were going to do that. And they did the similar thing where they praised Trump right after he won.
Yeah.
Before he came to office in January, he was president-elect. And they wandered up to Trump. They marched up to Trump Tower. They didn't do any press releases because they were embarrassed, right? Because Trump was controversial and he was also anti-immigrant. And they in that one, Elon Musk was present, but they were all there, similar people, almost lots of the same people. They went up to Trump Tower, they did the whole praising thing, and they said not a word about immigration, and I kept telling them he's going to ban Muslims. And they were like, no, he's not. We're just going to convince him otherwise. And I was like, you're not. He's a racist. He's absolutely not going to do it. And so they went up and they didn't release press releases. They just wanted tax repatriation at the time and a bunch of other things, no regulation. And they got on all his business councils, and then he started misbehaving, including at Charlottesville and then other behaviors, and they all came off his business councils, right? And so this time they went right back to, and then of course they all decried him after the insurrection. And then they went back to it because they want things, including advantages in AI and cyber, in cryptocurrency, regulations, tax advantages, everything else. And so this is the get while the getting's good. So they showed up at the White House. They were supposed to be on the Rose Garden Club patio, whatever, the Marriott, as I like, the new Marriott in the DC, not the good Marriott,
No,
the medium Marriotts.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say the worst Marriotts, but the medium Marriotts.
Right.
And so they went and they did exactly what you saw, which was become ever more escalating series of toady behavior in order to get what they want, including complimenting him, including everything. It was like going to the inaugural, same thing, is that they just have to give up very little to get a lot from him. And my only question, so it's the same behavior. It has not changed, despite what happened in that interim period. And to me, I ask myself, why be a billionaire if you have to be a toady? I just don't understand that there is more, there are bigger stakes here, and that I don't think it helps shareholders. They're doing it for shareholder advantage. Like, okay, my shareholders need less tariffs if I'm Tim Cook or something like that. And so I think they have a higher social duty, but they feel like their shareholders are better served by doing this. To me, anyone who's upending the rule of law is not good for shareholders. Anyone that's making people doubt in the government, in the stock market, and whatever it happens to be, is a danger to corporations, because then you become like Hungary or Turkey, not exactly centers for innovation and growth in this world. So
yeah, or Russia, right? Where when the dictator is mad at you, they just seize your business. I mean, this is a world in which Donald Trump is having the United States take interest, financial interest in businesses. He's upended what we thought was capitalism, right? It's not free market capitalism.
Well, no,
it's basically a
when
Maoist
it's
state.
during it, it's capitalism. When other people are doing, I just interviewed John Malone, who is a big investor. I like John. I think
Heard that interview. Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, he would have lost his mind if a Democrat took 10% of Intel or demanded a 15% VIG from NVIDIA. Lost his mind. But here it's genius, or the terrorists are genius. Like, I don't agree. Like, you can't have when the Biden or right now taking credit for the infrastructure stuff, putting his name all over it. It's not capitalism if the government is making industrial policy. It's something else. It's socialism is what it is. And so here you accuse Zoran Mamdani, whatever you think of him, of 3 or 4 grocery stores to help poor people eat vegetables, and then you take a big stake in Intel. I'm sorry. You can't do that at the same time. And so to me, I can't believe I can believe they're doing it. I can't believe that it's good for their companies in the long run, but these are the companies that aren't getting affected by tariffs. The tech companies do not get affected by tariffs. Why isn't the head of Caterpillar there? Why isn't the head of Procter & Gamble there? Those are the countries that are really suffering, companies that are suffering under these tariffs and economic policies.
Oh, they'll get there. I'm sure they'll have their turn.
But there's hundreds and hundreds of companies suffering, and these 7 companies keep getting invited back, and they keep being toadies. And that, to me, is grotesque.
Well, the thing is, it's money that's going both ways, right? These are all companies that also doled out money for the inauguration. And it's very clear that what Trump needs is to feel happy, right? He needs everyone to praise him. He's needy, he's childish. He's got to have everybody tell him he's great, he's the best. So that's what he requires.
I don't think Trump's the problem here. I think they are, right? Like, we already know this about him. This is not new news that he's that he needs sycophants, that he needs people to praise him, that we have to tell him he's smart, whoever we happen to be. I would not do that. But, this is not new. Donald Trump is who he is. It's these CEOs that are pretzeling themselves in order to do so. And they, by the way, they might act a different way for if the Democrats.
It'll be completely different. They would never do that with a Democratic president. They would also not get whatever they want in exchange for cash, because it feels like what we're seeing is this billionaire class exchange cash with Donald Trump, make him a billionaire. He's now $5 billion in Bitcoin, value. They know what he wants, and it's a bribe, right? But it feels almost like 1930s Germany, but worse, right? In Germany, the CEOs thought they could control Hitler. In this case, they're like, we can buy him.
I don't think they think they can control him. I think they think the getting's good. This guy is handing out gimmies, and depending on where you sit in that thing, you hand, and then we're going to invest in the United States. Let me just tell you, if Apple wanted to invest in the United States, they could have 10 years ago. They didn't. So now they want to. Why? Why do they want to now? because China's a threat. China was a threat 10 years ago. They facilitated the growth of technology in China, by the way, funded it. There's a great book about this out. So if they wanted to do manufacture in the U.S., they could have done it at any one time. But here they're doing it now. We're going to invest $500 billion. We're going to invest $600 billion. Like, and they are doing that, and they would do that regardless for these AI data because they need them in the United States. These data centers. But if that had mattered to them and the U.S. had mattered to them, they would have done it before.
Yeah.
If that was their goal.
Well, why do you think Zuckerberg straight out lied? I mean, he said, Mr. President, how much would you like us to say we're investing? He gives a number, and then afterwards on a hot mic, he's like, "Is that the number you wanted, boss?" Like,
I think didn't. In that case, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because I think Trump just pulled it on him, and everyone's competing to do another press release of how much money they're investing in the United States because they know if they, these companies have grown because of other countries, especially Apple, by the way. China or wherever they happen to locate. And now the pressure is on to do stuff here in this country, which is very difficult because we don't have the educational background. Some of the stuff we shouldn't manufacture here. But most of these companies don't make anything here. Just the chip manufacturers could, but they're in Taiwan for the most part. And so, there's lots of arguments being made that we should have our chips here in this country. Sure, but why weren't they made in the first Trump administration? Why weren't they made in the Bush administration? Again, these companies do what's good for them, and that's it. And today, what's good for them is to kiss up to Donald Trump. That is just the facts. And so,
sad but true. Sad. But why do you think that Elon Musk wasn't there? It was a very glaring absence. He wasn't there doing anything weird or on ketamine or whatever. He just wasn't there.
He's got his hands full with his companies right now. There's all kinds of troubles at Tesla and other places. But he says he was invited. Other people at the White House said he wasn't. I don't really care. I think he's having problems with the president. And the president did say, and I think quite accurately, that Elon doesn't have really anywhere to go. He's kind of homeless. And so he has to come back to the Republican Party unless the Democrats decide to just take advantage of him. But what's interesting, if he wasn't invited, then it has a real matchup to the stupidity of the Biden administration not inviting him to the car summit. Now, I know there are arguments for it and everything else, but it really did start his descent into anti-Democrats, is that when he wasn't invited to that summit.
I mean, but how childish is that? You're a billionaire and you're butthurt because you didn't get invited to one thing, and all of a sudden you're like, I'm going to destroy America and steal everyone's data. Like, he has all our data. He doesn't have to go to a meeting anymore.
Well, allegedly. I don't know. He probably should have been there. That was that was stupid politically from a point of view. And I did talk to him, not just for that thing, with the Democrats, and I think there should be guardrails on these companies, and I've talked about it a lot. But the Democrats, you could argue they went too far on cryptocurrency. They didn't work with the cryptocurrency industry, and they could have done it in a way that was a little less hostile, right? And you can't celebrate American tech companies, which are the finest in the world, and also always call them. You have to find a way to work with them and put guardrails in place. And I think what we're doing is careening from one totally 1920s anything goes to no, you may not kind of thing. Like, we're going to put every rule on you. And then they're contending with Europe at the same time, which is putting all kinds of fines on these companies.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, I feel like we've careened to a point now where, Donald Trump, as long as they're willing to pay him, is willing to give them complete control over the country. There is this idea of a techno-feudalist economy, a Yarvinist, they're going to be the overlords and the rest of us are meat.
Oh, they love
that. And of course they love it, but where does this end? Peter Thiel scares the hell out of me. I'm going to be honest. He seems to me to be probably the most frightening out of the whole bunch. What does he want?
I think he's very smart. Like, let me just tell you, he's been around. These guys are kind of Johnny-come-latelys to this stuff because it's like it's mostly money, really. And they can sort of cosplay that they now understood the light and they used to be Democrats and now it's whatever.
Yeah, they'll say whatever.
Literally, I think I told you the jokes. I tell this joke a lot. If Kamala Harris was president, they would be they them if she wanted. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they would, whatever, they would dance with her. They would do whatever. They
whatever.
Kids. I don't know. Whatever it happened to be. They give her kids or whatever. Whoever's in power is who they're interested in, right? And so
hey, by the way, those were Chucks, by the way. Let's just respect the shoes.
I have a pair myself. I should know.
Me too. I have like 4.
So one of the things that that is really important to understand is that they live in a world where they control everything. Like the unified executive theory is not something tech people don't know about. Mark Zuckerberg can't be fired from Facebook ever for anything. Same thing with a couple of the companies. And so they like that. They like full control of things. And the ones that don't have it have more of a problem. Like Elon has full control over the companies. And so they operate in that way. And sometimes it works for a company, by the way. Company is not a collective, right? It's usually an executive and then on down. And so they kind of back that idea and they do think it. And I think Peter is one of the many people. JD Vance was influenced by Peter. This idea that there should be one single executive to do whatever they want because daddy knows best. White daddy knows best for the rest of us, essentially. Sorry, white daddy.
Yeah.
And it's not the train daddy from the Gilded Age, and I'd let him run anything. And I'm a lesbian. He's very adorable. Even then, those daddies weren't good at the time.
Right. I mean, that's the Gilded. Literally, we're back in the Gilded Age, except the daddies are all bad. The daddies are all.
They were pretty bad.
They think women shouldn't vote, and that people should be robotic automaton that just go to work for 12 hours a day.
Yeah, that's the same daddies. It's the same it's the same situation. But they're comfortable in that where they get to decide everything. And then what's really interesting about them, they do share with Trump, is this victimization idea. Oh God, the press is so mean to me. I'm not like what they think. They're very angry. And so that's why they buy media companies. That's why they just feel like so put upon. And again, if you're a billionaire, you should be happy as fuck. I don't know. And you shouldn't have to kiss up to the president. And I don't mind if they laid low. Like laid low is fine, I guess. It's kind of wimpy, but I'd like some of them to speak up. But if they're not going to speak up, they don't need to do this because it's really, it's really, I wrote one of them and I said, you're soiling yourself. I just don't know what else to say. You're soiling yourself in public. And
you want to tell us which one?
No. And the only one I'm going to give an out to, a tiny bit of an out, is Bill Gates, who was sitting there. I think he wants to get that money back for USAID. I don't think it was for Microsoft that he was there, because Satya Nadella was there for Microsoft.
Or do you think he's afraid they'll release his name on the Epstein list?
No, I don't. I think he's has been devoting himself to a lot of, whether it's AIDS or malaria and stuff like that. And I think the cutting of USAID has been very devastating to what he's been doing from a philanthropy perspective. And so I think in that case, you might bend the knee for that, I guess. I don't think it's the Epstein list.
I don't think it is. Yeah. Well, what about, what are we looking at? Because eventually, the what do you call it? The tables say that eventually JD Vance could theoretically be president. Donald Trump is not well. He's very elderly. He doesn't seem to be well. But if for whatever reason he wasn't president, we'd be talking about Peter Thiel's employee being the president. What would that mean for us?
Rachel called him that. He called him Peter Thiel's failed intern. I think that's
pretty much. That's accurate.
I call him the butler of the rich guys. He's kind of the butler.
Well, on South Park, he's the guy who says, the plane, Bob. That guy.
I don't think, by the way, I think he's quite smart. I like, as much as we want to discount him.
Well, he's smart enough to say Trump is Hitler and then become Hitler's VP. So,
Right. I think he's a complex person. When I was at an event where he was insulting Trump so much so that I was like, just a second, he has some interesting attributes. This is me, lesbian from San. It's like, wait a minute. He is charming, or charismatic is what I was trying to point out. But he was, he's a complex person. I find him to be a problematic candidate because I think he's charmless. And I think Americans don't like charmlessness. Any way you slice it, the minute Trump keels over or is out of the picture, it's going to be they're going to have a civil war going.
Oh, it's going to be civil war.
That's the real civil war. It's going to be between and among those people. And then you have people like, Glenn Youngkin or a David McCormick, who might be able to wrest control. The problem is when you have this sort of cult-like figure at the top, it devolves. It just absolutely devolves into something else. And is J.D. Vance a deft enough politician, even with money from Elon Musk, even with money from Peter Thiel, to overcome his charmlessness? And I don't know what else to say. He's charmless. He's he's
like Ron DeSantis without the white boots.
Oh, well, no, he's more charming than Ron DeSantis.
Well, a bottle of water is more charming than Ron DeSantis.
Now, imagine him against a Gavin Newsom. It's just like,
yeah, done.
I don't
Not even close.
I don't see it. I think Gavin is a shapeshifter in terms of appealing to some people, right? He's very good at like moving through spaces, right? Through openings. And I think the Democrats often, a lot of the Democrats are sort of, I think someone was describing as peacetime. Like, remember in The Godfather, he's a peacetime consigliere. I need a war consigliere.
Yes.
They need a wartime consigliere, and they've got peacetime consigliere.
They do. And two more questions. One, on this whole, you saw the Trump raid of the Hyundai plant.
That was terrible.
Which seems like a signal that they're now going big. Tom Homan said they're going to do more of this. But this is one of those companies that the United States has worked really hard to try to bring foreign investment into the United States, right? And it's hard for me to imagine. Number one, if they were making electric cars, I'm wondering if Elon is like, "Yo, are we trying to like destroy that industry entirely with the windmills?"
Elon has said that explicitly, that they're trying, that he's hurting he's advantaged the fossil fuel companies
for sure
for the EV companies, and Elon's correct in that.
And they want to. I mean, what we've seen now is, a Trump administration official agree that windmills are the reason that electric prices are going up, and saying, well, wind doesn't work when it's not, windmills don't work when it's not windy, and electric doesn't work, or solar doesn't work when the sun's not out, as if they don't understand how batteries work. Like these people are just saying, no, we just want to drill for oil, right?
They're just making it up. I mean, I think it's to advantage fossil fuel companies and to delay the inevitable, which is electric vehicles, which is not just electric vehicles. There's all sorts of interesting innovations going on: fusion energy, hydrogen energy. These are, if we perfect them, and if our government was smart, we'd be really investing in these things, because it's the future. It's the actual future in which we could really dominate. And it's energy that never dies, that doesn't pollute the environment. And just a big ice shelf just broke off, like the biggest ice shelf just broke into pieces or something. And you're sort of like, I know a lot of this is sort of science fiction in some of the movies, but you're like, wow, that's really problematic. Like that's the thing. And so you don't have to be, a big climate change person to see that we need to shift in what we're doing. And many of these tech people, by the way, know this. They do know this. And that's why Sam Altman's investing in fusion energy, or Gates or Musk. They're all investing in this stuff because they do know it's the future.
But in their future, in their version of this future, there essentially is no federal government. You've got like a very well-pampered king president that just gets shoveled money the way Sam Alito is, and they get nice vacations, and they control the country, right?
Correct, right. But, look, we've had business people controlling a lot of stuff behind the scenes. This is explicit. And that's why it's so distasteful. It seems such a paper play. And Trump is the coin-operated president. Put a coin in, and he, if there was a very liberal person doing this to him, I suspect he'd be very liberal. Like, I don't think he has any hard and true values. So,
none.
If the billionaire wasn't Elon Musk, but was, me, if I was a multi-billionaire, he'd be like, everybody gets a hug. Like, whatever it happens to be. Like, I wouldn't have people hug. That's
And my last question here, because Speaker Mike Johnson is an especially, to me, puzzling character. He claims to be an evangelical Christian, a Bible-believing Christian, yet he's willing to shill for literally anything evil Donald Trump wants, anything he wants to do. But he came out and he said something really, really interesting. And that is effectively naming Donald Trump as not just an FBI informant, but as the informant who turned in Jeffrey Epstein, who now has said he misspoke. But that was weird. Your thoughts?
I don't understand that, man. I think there's a whole internal. I would really know. I'd like to see the thought bubble over that guy's head, and like what's really happening. If I could read minds, I'd want to read his. Right?
Yeah.
There is something going on with that guy that is just like, what is the motivation? What is his end game? He's almost like a character in a fictional, like in Knives Out is about to come out with Knives Out. He's like one of those people. Like, what is he? Is he the killer? Is he the toady? Is he you don't know what he's doing, but whatever it takes, he's just sucking up to Donald Trump. Now, I think, again, people like that, what happens after post-Trump. There is going to be a post-Trump at some point, actuarial table.
Do you think that? I mean, do you think that
I
this
think
MAGA
biology-
movement ends at some point, or are
Yes,
we
I do.
trapped in this vortex for like
No,
20 years?
If he puts things in place, certainly. If he could game the system for 20 years, sure. But it still requires the personality. It requires him. Now, they could keep a memory of him alive or whatever. But look, as Scott Galloway, my co-host on Pivot, says, biology is undefeated. I'm sorry. The actuarial tables are what they are. He has a 50% chance of being, given his age, and I'm not young either. He has a 50% chance. I'm not as old as he is, obviously, but by a lot.
I mean, who yeah, I was going to say, who
by
is?
A lot. No, by a lot. He's old, and he's an older president. And by the way, same thing with all these other representatives, whether it's Eleanor Holmes Norton, whether it's Gary Nadler. They're too old to be deciding the future. Like, honestly, I don't understand why old people are deciding the future of my son who's 23. I don't get it. I don't know why my son isn't part of that, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and there's the feels like in Trump's case, it's this sort of hurry up to get all of his dreams to come true because he doesn't have time, right? His dream of being a king, his dream of being a billionaire, his dream of being beloved, being at the Kennedy Center, getting a Kennedy Center honor. He's trying to like fulfill all his wish list, his bucket list, like all at the same time.
I mean, it can't, like one of the things I always did with the tech guys sometimes, a lot of them, not all of them, but some of them are really terrific. Mark Cuban being one, for example, is I used to think, wow, their parents didn't hug them enough as children. I know it sounds crazy. It's so reductive to think that way, but you're like, I'm sorry your parents didn't love you, but you need to go get therapy and stop subjecting yourself to us to you. And so I think Donald Trump has an empty hole. I'm not a therapist, but it's just clear that there was something happened. And we're paying the price, and it's never going to be enough for this guy. But after he goes, there will be like a reckoning. There will be a reckoning with some of these people. What's interesting to see is someone like who I find loathsome, Marjorie Taylor Greene, but a little bit of a backbone you see there, right? A little bit, just a tiny bit. So you're starting to see bits and flashes of which way it's going. And that's going to be tremendously interesting. And it's a real opportunity for Democrats, as Newsom said, to get a little muscular here. And that's not a gender specific thing. It's like, stop acting like it's normal. And finally, Ezra Klein finally is like, oh, this might be a problem. Joy, you've been talking about, like, I was like, really? Oh,
you think?
Thank you for the penny to fucking drop now. Like, I mean, you've been talking about this, and it's not, you're hysterical. Joy's hysterical. The men are very measured. They now realize we may have a problem here.
Maybe just a little bit, a little bit.
And so that to me, no one survives. A cult doesn't survive past the cult leader. It just doesn't. It never.
There's never going to be a Jones Jr. You know what I mean? Like Jim Jones. That's it. Jim Jones Jr. can't run the cult. Like it's just
he's also dead, but he's actually
fair. Firm but fair.
Dead.
Kara Swisher, it is always so much fun. Thank you very much. Next time with cocktails,
Maybe
I
they
appreciate
can make an AI version of Trump, and that'll lead us.
See, first of all, the fact that was ever done with Prince, I'm already so offended that there was an AI Prince that was doing a concert. I'm like, please don't do that. Please do not make a hologram of Michael Jackson, Prince, or Donald Trump, and not for the same reasons.
Someday, but not today.
Not today.
He's not going to make it into the future in another. They're not going to take Donald Trump's brain and put it in another body that's young.
Oh God.
And by the way, even with Xi and Putin, we're talking about Oregon. I'm doing a show about longevity right now. A lot of stuff around that. My next book is about that. And while it's really intriguing and really interesting where we're headed, not today. It's going to be too late for Trump. So.
None of these people, and I think Peter Thiel also wants to live forever. It's like the people who no one actually likes now are like, I'm just going to live in perpetuity and people will not like me forever.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Okay. Like, I don't think people are begging for Elon Musk for eternity or Peter Thiel forever.
I don't think he wants to live forever.
He doesn't?
No. I don't know. I never asked him.
I probably wouldn't ask him because I wouldn't speak to him because he, again, frightens me. Kara Swisher, thank you.
Nobody frightens you, Joy. Give me.
You're right. That's fair. Thank you so much.
The dark is afraid of you.
Like that's it. And it should be. Damn it.
I need to say my daughter was like scared of the dark. And I said, you know what you have to say? The dark is afraid of me.
The dark is afraid of me. That's right. And obviously the fascists are as well. They are afraid because you know what scares them? Women. Women.
Yeah.
Freaks them out because they can't control the women.
Right.
So, all right. Thank you, Kara Swisher.
Thank you so much.
All right, y'all. That was great. Kara Swisher in the house. You can join her on the Kara Swisher podcast. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. You can get them on Spotify. You can get her on YouTube. You're definitely going to want to listen because she's a smart lady and she knows a lot of things. All right, y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe. Share this channel. Make sure that everybody subscribes to the YouTube channel. 70% of people are lurking, watching these shows and not subscribing. Why would you do that? So make sure that you like, subscribe, and throw some comments. And thank you all for joining the Joy Reid Show. See you on the next one. And goodbye for now.